On the day of the accident, I had just informed your wife of the gender of the baby inside her. It's truly heartbreaking. I first learned the gender of our child when my wife's obstetrician, who was giving her a prenatal checkup, told me so. I wish I had heard it from you. Even though I spoke to her, my wife lay motionless, not saying a word. I have been living like a slacker since the day I lost my wife and my baby at the same time. I just wish to join them soon. My name is Mike, 32 years old. 2 years ago, I lost my pregnant wife, Jennifer, and our unborn child at the same time. It was due to a car accident on their way back from the maternity clinic. I used to accompany my wife to every prenatal checkup. But that day, I couldn't get off work. So I let her go alone. By the time I reached the hospital, it was already too late. Jennifer wasn't breathing anymore. She had many injuries on her face and body, unlike how she looked when we parted ways in the morning. I held Jennifer's hand, which was noticeably more bruised. The hospital staff then told me, "It seems she was trying to protect her belly, that's why her hands have more injuries." I couldn't stop crying after hearing that. I still didn't feel like a mother. Is everything going to be all right? Can I truly become a good mom? My wife said this just the other day. "Jennifer, you're an amazing mom." Putting her child's life before her own, I believe Jennifer was a kind and strong mother, no matter what anyone says. The hospital where my late wife and child were taken was a general hospital that also housed the maternity clinic Jennifer attended. As I was beside myself with grief next to my wife and child, the doctor who looked after us during the prenatal checkups came over. His eyes, always filled with smiles when greeting us, were now red and teary. "I had just told your wife about the gender of the baby today. It's truly heartbreaking. It was a boy." After the doctor left, I knelt down weakly beside Jennifer. "I wish I could have seen you hold him, Jennifer." My murmurs echoed faintly in the room, making me feel even lonelier. From then on, I was consumed by grief and couldn't sleep at night. So I escaped into alcohol, drowning my sorrows in alcohol, then passing out. Though I went to work, I was completely demotivated and just went through the motions. After 2 years of living this way, there was a slight change in my routine. On my days off, I used to stay home and avoid everyone, but lately, I started visiting the park. When I go to the park, there's a mother and son I often see here. It's Emily and her son, Jake. Jake is 4 years old. I got to know them when I happened to pass by just as Jake had fallen and hurt himself, and I helped treating his wound. This park is situated right between my apartment and the supermarket. On my days off in the morning when I head to the supermarket, Jake is often there playing. Naturally, I began talking to Emily, his mother, from time to time. But that wasn't the only reason I started talking to Emily. Truth be told, when I first met Emily, I thought she looked familiar. She reminded me of my late wife. Their personalities are entirely different. My late wife was reserved and quiet, but Emily is an always energetic single mother. If anything, Jake might resemble my late wife more. He's shy and tends to be introverted. But I've never told Emily or Jake about this. I know it would be awkward to tell someone you've just met that they resemble my late wife, so I've decided to keep it to myself. Today, on my day off, as I was heading to the supermarket, I stopped by the park. "Hey Mike, will you play with me today?" Seeing Jake come over, excited like a puppy wagging his tail, always melts my heart. "Of course, buddy." Looking somewhat apologetic was Jake's mom, Emily. "Are you sure it's all right? I always feel bad, especially since it's your day off. If you ever have plans or just want to relax at home, please let us know. I often wonder how they would react if I told them I somehow feel drawn to them because they remind me of my late wife and child. It's been 2 years of despair, But since getting close to Emily, I've been able to lead a more human-like life. Ever since I began seeing Emily and Jake, I've been able to sleep soundly, and I've cut down on my drinking. I used to drink to numb the deep pain. But now, even without alcohol, just seeing Emily and her son soothes my soul. It eases my loneliness. Although it's a good thing, I can't help but feel guilty, as though I'm betraying the memories of my late wife and our unborn child. I fear I might forget the pain of losing them. At times, I've considered not meeting Emily and Jake anymore. But I still end up going to the park before I know it. I can't resist seeing the smiles and laughter of Emily and Jake. Perhaps I'm a terrible husband and father. With these thoughts in mind, one day, Jake fell sick with a fever. I received a sudden call in the middle of the night. Jake has a fever. It's almost 104 degrees. He's not responding much, and he's not drinking much water. I've never seen him like this. What should I? Emily sounded really distressed. Though we had exchanged contact information in the past, our interactions were usually limited to our weekend meetings at the park. This was the first time she'd called me. I'm glad we exchanged numbers, just in case. Emily, it's going to be okay. I'll come right over, and we'll head to the hospital in my car. Please text me your address. Get ready to go. Okay. When we talked, I knew our homes were in the same neighborhood, but I didn't know the exact address. I was worried if Emily, who seemed flustered, would give me the proper address, but she sent it without hesitation. I rushed to Emily's house by car and immediately drove to the emergency night clinic. The clinic that was open overnight was the same one where my wife and baby had passed away. Pulling into the clinic parking lot, memories of that tragic day came flooding back, and my heart ached. Desperately pushing those emotions down, I got Jake checked out. They conducted various tests, but fortunately, it wasn't a serious illness. Still, he had to get an injection, and during that time, Emily and I waited in the empty lobby. I'm sorry. Thinking about it now, I should have just called a cab. I panicked and called you, Mike, without thinking. Any parent dealing with their child's first high fever would probably panic. It's okay. Single parent, no car, and a child with a high fever is enough to make anyone panic. I'm glad I was able to get there. Emily, who was looking pale earlier, seemed to be regaining her color, which was a relief. I wonder if I'd be rushing to the hospital like this if my child was still alive. As I thought about that, I recalled the conversation between the doctor and Emily. Emily, is Jake's birthday on April 20th? Caught off guard by my question, Emily looked surprised. Yes, it is. Why do you ask? I struggled to find the words. To me, April 20th is a special day. My child was still in my wife's womb when they both were tragically taken from me in an accident. The due date was April 20th. Even if the baby might not have been born on that exact day, I've always thought of April 20th as his birthday, so it just hit me that it's the same. I have vaguely mentioned losing my wife and child, but never spoke of the accident or that our baby hadn't been born yet. That must have been so hard for you, she replied. As a mother herself, maybe she understood how I felt. Emily looked deeply saddened. Actually, my late wife looked a lot like you and Jake. I've felt nostalgic every time I see you two. I'm sorry, this must be awkward for you to hear. It surprised me to share such a personal story. I hadn't spoken about this to anyone in the 2 years since their passing. Even with my late wife's parents, I had never shared memories. It seems I hadn't fully come to terms with the loss. Maybe Emily has unknowingly become someone special to me. That's probably why I inadvertently showed her this vulnerable side of me. I feel comfortable around her, and that scares me. I want to hold on to the pain and loss of my wife and child. I can't be the only one to find happiness and move on. While lost in thought, Emily looked deeply into my eyes. Can I know your wife's name? Her name was Jennifer. She was so kind and attentive to even the smallest changes in others. I had hoped our unborn child would be like her. Images of my late wife flashed in my mind. Quickly, I took out some money from my wallet and placed it on the lobby couch. Please take a cab home with this. I need to go now. Sorry. I don't want our time together with you and Jake to be my place of comfort. I want to live quietly, always cherishing the memory of my wife and child. Without waiting for her reply, I turned away and started walking. I thought I should distance myself from Emily and Jake, but suddenly, she embraced me from behind. Wait, I have something I need to discuss with you. But first, was your wife's name Jennifer Kirtley? I paused at the familiar maiden name of my long-lost wife and turned around to the woman who had just embraced me, Emily. Did I ever mention my wife's maiden name to you? I was pretty sure I had only told her the first name earlier. Then, Emily took a deep breath and gestured for me to sit down. I complied and sat next to her. I knew Jennifer and I were sisters. What? I'm sorry. I don't understand what you're saying. To my astonishment, Emily began to explain a shocking truth. Emily and my late wife were sisters. But when Emily was still a baby, their parents divorced. The father took Jennifer, and the mother took Emily. They had parted on bad terms and hadn't been in contact since the split. Considering Jennifer was just around 2 years old when Emily was a baby, it made sense that she wouldn't remember. Emily's mother lived a poor life because she often played around with men. A few years after the divorce, my parents met by chance once, and my dad said he never told Jennifer about the divorce. She believes that the woman my dad dated after the divorce is a real mother, so he had no intention of letting her know about my mom and me. Jennifer's parents are still alive. But I never heard such a story from Jennifer, and neither from my in-laws. My in-laws are relatively well off, and the family got along really well. The fact that Jennifer was not related to her mother-in-law by blood was something she intended to take the secret to her grave. My voice trembled as I processed the shocking revelation. Emily, did you know that Jennifer's husband is me? No, I thought I was an only child. I was told my dad passed away, but about 6 months ago, my mom passed away from an illness. Before she died, she told me about my father and sister. Just before Emily's mom passed away, Emily had divorced Jake's dad. The reason was Jake's dad's violence. I could have endured it if it was just me, but when he started hitting Jake, I realized I couldn't go on like this. With no mother and now no husband, I felt lonely and insecure, wondering if I could raise Jake on my own. So I thought of coming to this place where my dad and sister had lived. Even without meeting them, just knowing that her father and sister lived in this place, perhaps in a town like Nebraska, might have provided some solace to Emily. Out of curiosity, I confirmed the name of Emily's father, and sure enough, it matched my father-in-law's name. Indeed, Emily and my late wife Jennifer were sisters. It kind of makes sense now that you and Jake look like Jennifer. Jake's birthday and the expected birth date of the baby Jennifer was carrying were the same. I know it's a coincidence, but I feel a connection, I said, recalling Jennifer's smiling face. Yes, but Jennifer grew up in a happy family and married you, while I lived a hard life, being oppressed by my husband. And now, even my sister isn't in this world anymore. Maybe I'm destined to be alone. I reached out to embrace Emily, but withdrew my hand. I told myself that I shouldn't be happy with someone else so that I wouldn't forget my wife and child. The two of us sat in silence until Emily finally spoke up. I've fallen for you, Mike, but when I think about how Jennifer, a sister I never met, might feel, I get scared. Maybe we shouldn't see each other anymore. I wanted to nod in agreement, but found myself frozen. Just then, Jake, who had finished his injection, returned with a nurse. He looked much better than before, still a bit wobbly, but able to walk on his own. A sigh of relief escaped my lips. Jake, let's go home. I'll drive you. Rest up, all right. As I spoke, Jake nodded but then said something puzzling. "You know, I had a fever and it was really high, but then, a woman holding a baby stroked my head. She was like a mom, a very kind person." Both I and Emily were taken aback upon hearing this and exchanged glances. This was because we were just talking about a woman who looked a lot like Emily. "You know, that lady wanted to speak with Mom and Mike. She said, 'I wish you happiness.' I told her I didn't understand, but she just smiled. I'm so confused." It became clear that my wife had come to visit young Jake. That "I wish you happiness" must have been about me and Emily. Tears welled up in my eyes as I took Emily's hand. "Should we talk about our future once more? Let's find a path that will make both of us and Jake happy." "Yes." I picked up Jake and left the hospital with Emily. I think my wife gave the hesitant Emily and me a little push from behind. After that, Emily and I dated and registered our marriage when Jake started elementary school. Emily was also able to meet and talk with my in-laws. My father-in-law was quite fond of Emily, and he was thrilled when they met. Emily is currently pregnant, but the other day, Jake mentioned something curious. "The baby inside Mom's belly feels like the lady who stroked my head at the hospital." Emily and I looked at each other and chuckled. I believe that the new life inside Emily is being watched over by our departed Jennifer and her child. Until I heard Jennifer's words at the hospital, remembering her and our child brought unbearable pain. But not anymore. It feels as though Jennifer and our child aren't really gone. I believe they're always watching over us. That is why we who are alive want to laugh a lot and search for happiness.